If you want a single image that sums up how mad the World Cup can get, it's Zidane. 2006 Berlin World Cup Final. The guy's an absolute legend, already won it in '98, three-time FIFA World Player of the Year, the definition of big game player. And in his very last match before retirement, he's dragging France through the final looking for that perfect ending. It all starts well. Zidane's ice-cold penalty, cheeky Panenka off the bar in a World Cup final. The confidence is off the charts. But as the game goes on, things start to get heated. Marco Materazzi, the Italian centre-back, spends a whole match winding Zidane up. Some pushing, some shoving, a few words, typical final stuff. Then, completely out of nowhere, Zidane just snaps. In extra time, with millions watching, he turns around, looks Materazzi dead in the eye, and absolutely leathers him in the chest with a headbutt. No build-up, no warning, just a proper "did that really happen" moment. Materazzi drops like a stone, the stadium goes silent, the referee sprints over, flashes the red card, and Zidane's World Cup career ends right there, in disgrace. People are stunned. Fans can't believe it. France lose the shootout, Italy lift the trophy, and instead of talking about the football, all anyone wants to discuss is that headbutt. What did Materazzi say? Why did Zidane do it? Is this how legends should go out? It's the World Cup at its wildest, when a player at the very top just loses it on the biggest stage possible. And honestly, football hasn't stopped talking about it since. Some moments in football are so famous you don't even need to see the clip. You just know. Maradona, the hand of God, Mexico 1986. It's Argentina versus England in the quarter-final, and the tension couldn't be higher. Not just a football match either. This was just 4 years after the Falklands War. The atmosphere is pure electricity. Then, early in the second half, Maradona picks up the ball outside the box, slips through a gap and chips it into the penalty area. He's 5'5", the England keeper's charging out, and in a split second, Maradona punches the ball into the net with his left hand. Absolutely blatant. The referee misses it, the linesmen miss it, and suddenly it's a goal. England's players are fuming, absolutely losing it, but the goal stands. The cameras pick it up from every angle, but it's too late. Maradona doesn't even bother hiding it. He just jogs back, cheeky good on his face. In the post-match interview, he calls it a little with the head of Maradona and a little with the hand of God. It's cheeky, it's genius, and it's complete daylight robbery. And the craziest part, just minutes later, he scores the best goal the World Cup's ever seen, dribbling half the length of the pitch, beating 5 England players and slotting it in. The villain and the hero all in the space of a few minutes. People still argue about that goal today. Was it cheating? Was it just pure cunning? Whatever you call it, it's the ultimate World Cup controversy. One handball that became legend, and a moment that sums up everything wild about football's biggest stage.
There are moments of the World Cup that change everything, not just for the teams, but for the whole tournament. And when you talk about pure drama and controversy, nothing comes close to Luis Suarez against Ghana in 2010. It's the quarter-finals. Ghana are the last African team standing, carrying a whole continent's hopes. They're up against Uruguay. It's the last minute of extra time, literally the last kick before penalties. Ghana whip in a corner, the ball's flicked on, and it's chaos in the 6-yard box. Suddenly, a header comes in, the keeper's beaten, the ball's going in. And then Suarez, on the goal line, just throws up both hands and punches the ball away. Not a sly handball, not an accident. He literally saves it like a keeper right in front of the ref. It's an instant red card. Ghana get a penalty to win him. The stadium's going wild, and Suarez is sent off in tears. But just as he reaches the tunnel, he stops and watches. Asamoah Gyan steps up, takes the penalty for glory, and smashes it off the bar. The chance is gone. Suarez suddenly is celebrating like he scored. He's become the villain and the hero, Insane Minute. Ghana lose in the penalty shootout, and all of Africa is heartbroken. Was it cheating? Was it just clever? Even now it splits opinion, but what's for sure, it's one of the wildest, most debated acts of win-at-all-cost football the World Cup's ever seen. And for Ghana, it still stings.
And here we are, not even halfway through, and somehow Luis Suarez is already making his second appearance on this list. If there's a player built for World Cup controversy, it's him. So let's rewind to Brazil 2014. Final group game, Italy versus Uruguay. Both teams fighting for survival, tension through the roof. Suarez is always in the thick of it, winding up defenders, pushing every boundary, but this time he crosses a line no one saw coming. It's late in the game, just minutes left, and suddenly there's a scramble in the Italian box. At first it just looks like some rough and tumble, bit of shirt pulling. Then, out of nowhere, Giorgio Chiellini is chasing the referee, pulling down his shirt and showing clear bite marks on his shoulder. The cameras catch everything. Suarez, in the heat of the moment, is actually bitten Chiellini on the pitch. It's not the first time either. Incredibly, it's the third time in his career he's bitten someone in a match. No red card, no penalty, play goes on, and Uruguay end up knocking Italy out, but the world's already seen it. Within minutes, social media explodes, the headlines write themselves, and Suarez's reputation as football's most unpredictable villain is sealed. FIFA come down hard, banning him from all football activity for 4 months, the kind of punishment you just never see. No training, no stadiums, can't even be around his teammates. Uruguay lose their talisman, and Suarez is left as the only man to ever get banned from a World Cup for acting like a wild animal. If you ask any England fan for the single most infuriating moments at a World Cup, you'll probably hear the same answer: Frank Lampard's ghost goal against Germany in 2010. It's the round of 16 in South Africa. England versus Germany, always a big one, and England are desperate to claw back into the game. Then, just before half-time, Lampard picks up the ball at the edge of the box and smashes it towards goal. It loops over the keeper, rattles the underside of the bar, and bounces well over the line. Clear as day to anyone watching. Except the officials. The ref wakes play on, Germany clear their lines, England players are screaming, arms in the air, but nothing's given. Replays show it wasn't even close. The ball was about a yard over the line. Even the German players looked a bit guilty. In that moment, millions of England fans just stared at their TVs in disbelief. That goal would have brought England level and changed the whole momentum of the match. Instead, Germany take over, England collapse, and the match ends in another heavy defeat. But all anyone talks about is Lampard's goal that never was. The fallout was huge. Fans, pundits, and even rival players were fuming. It didn't just cost England in that game, it finally forced FIFA's hand on goal line technology. Within a few years, video replays and Hawkeye systems became standard. It was classic World Cup chaos, injustice, outrage, and a decision so bad, it literally changed the game forever. For England, it's the moment that launched 1,000 what-ifs. Now, if you ever need proof that the World Cup isn't just about footballing genius, but also a bit of theatre, look no further than Rivaldo's infamous dive against Turkey in 2002. It's the opening group match, Brazil facing Turkey. Tensions are running high, but it's injury time and Brazil are comfortably in control. Rivaldo, one of the game's true superstars, goes to take a corner, and the Turkish defender Hakan Unzul boots the ball towards him, in frustration. Fair enough, it's petulant, but the ball hits Rivaldo squarely on the thigh. What happens next is pure pantomime. Rivaldo grabs his face, collapses to the floor as if he's been shot, and rolls around in agony. The referee, convinced by the theatrics, sends Unzal off with a red card. Turkey are down to 10 men, and Brazil see out the win.
but the cameras catch every second. Slow-motion replays show Rivaldo wasn't touched anywhere near the face. The whole world sees it for what it is, a blatant theatrical dive. Rivaldo's antics became an instant meme, replayed over and over, sparking outrage and laughter in equal measure. Even FIFA had to step in, fining Rivaldo for simulation, a rare move at the time, and a small price to pay considering Brazil went on to win the tournament. For a player as talented as Rivaldo, it was shameless, and yet it's the moment people still talk about whenever diving in football comes up. It's a reminder that sometimes even the best can't resist a bit of acting on the world's biggest stage.
Some World Cup controversies are all about what happens on the pitch, but sometimes the real drama starts hours before kickoff. That's exactly what happened in 1998 with Brazil's superstar striker Ronaldo. Ronaldo wasn't just any player. He was the face of world football, unstoppable all tournament and just 21 years old. Brazil was set to face France in the final, and the whole country was expecting him to bring the trophy home. Then suddenly, hours before the match, rumours started swirling. Ronaldo had been rushed to hospital. Some said he'd collapsed, others said he'd had a fit. No one really knew what was happening. As the teams lined up, Ronaldo's name was missing from the official team sheet. Then, moments later, it was back on. Nobody explained what was going on. When the match finally started, Ronaldo looked like a shadow of himself. Off the pace, hardly involved, France ran riot and won the final 3-0, and Brazil and the world were left baffled. After the match, it emerged that Ronaldo had suffered a mysterious seizure in his hotel room the night before the final. He was checked by doctors, declared fit to play, and thrown back into the starting 11. But to this day, nobody really knows the full story. Was it pressure, medication, or something even more serious behind the scenes? Some even whispered about conspiracy and cover-ups. Whatever the truth, it turned a World Cup final into one of the sport's biggest mysteries. For Ronaldo, it was a nightmare, but 4 years later, he returned and won the tournament, cementing his place as one of the game's greatest.
Some World Cup moments haunt football forever, and nothing sums that up more than Andreas Escobar's own goal at USA 1994, and the unthinkable fallout that followed. Colombia arrived in the States as dark horses, with a team packed full of flair and confidence. They'd battered Argentina in qualifying and were tipped by Pelé himself as potential winners. Escobar was their captain, a calm, composed defender, the heart of the team. Then came the second group match, Colombia versus USA. Under pressure in his own box, Escobar stuck out a leg to block a cross. The ball spun past his own keeper and into the net. An own goal on the world's biggest stage, and a fatal blow to Colombia's chances. They lost 2-1 and crashed out at the group stage. For most players, that would be the end. A sad story, maybe a few harsh headlines. But back home in Colombia, football and national pride were dangerously tangled with grime, money, and the drug cartels. Just days after returning home, Escobar went out to a nightclub in Medellin. He was confronted by a group of men and, shockingly, was shot and killed in cold blood. It was a tragedy that stunned the world. The message was chilling. One mistake on the pitch, and real-life consequences off it. Escobar's death changed the way people saw football's power and the risks players could face away from the game. In the end, he became a symbol of courage, of tragedy, and of how football's biggest stage can sometimes come with the heaviest price.
When people talk about World Cup finals being tense, they're usually thinking nerves, late goals, maybe a bit of drama. But the 2010 final between Spain and the Netherlands took it to a new level, and nothing summed it up more than Nigel de Jong's kung fu kick on Xabi Alonso.
It's Johannesburg, the biggest stage of all. Spain's tiki-taka up against Dutch total football. But from the first whistle, it's more like total carnage. The game's physical, tackles flying in everywhere, the ref trying to keep control. And then, just half an hour in, Beyond goes full Mortal Kombat. Alonso chests down high ball in midfield, routine stuff, when suddenly Beyond leaps in, studs up, and plants his boot straight into Alonso's chest. It's not a trip, not a mistimed tackle, it's a proper martial arts move right in front of the referee and a global audience of millions. Astonishingly, referee Howard Webb only gives a yellow card. The commentators can't believe it. The Spanish players are furious. Even the Dutch look a bit sheepish. The replay is shown again and again. Studs right into the ribs. If it happened anywhere else, it's a red card and a 3-game ban. Instead, the game lurches on, with the ref handing out a record 14 yellow cards before Spain finally win it in extra time. But for most people, the image that sticks is De Jong, mid-air, boot first into Alonso. One of those moments that makes you shout, how on earth did he get away with that? It's pure World Cup chaos. Peak tension, questionable decisions, and a reminder that sometimes football's biggest night goes completely off the rails.
Every World Cup throws up a team that captures everyone's imagination, but sometimes the story turns into something you'd never expect. Enter North Korea at South Africa 2010, a team shrouded in mystery, bold predictions, and one of the tournament's most memorable hammerings. North Korea hadn't qualified for the World Cup since 1966, where they'd shocked the world by beating Italy. So, when they finally returned, in 2010, their government promised a heroic run, even claiming on national TV that the team would reach the final. Reports suggested their opener against Brazil was broadcast live, but after that, only highlights of supposed victories were shown back home. Then came the match against Portugal. For the first half, North Korea looked solid, holding the Europeans to just a single goal. But what followed was pure World Cup carnage. Portugal went goal-crazy in the second half, scoring 6 more without reply. North Korea's defence collapsed and the game finished 7-0, the biggest defeat of the tournament and one of the heaviest ever on the world stage. The North Korean players were visibly crushed, and rumours flew after the tournament that they'd faced harsh treatment back home. Some even said they were paraded and criticised on state TV, a harsh feint for the players out of their depth, but doing their best. It became one of those unforgettable World Cup stories, wild national pride, crushing reality, and a match that everyone in Portugal loved, but no one in North Korea was ever meant to see. It's the kind of moment only a World Cup can produce, a perfect mix of hype, heartbreak, and the world spotlight showing just how high and low the game can take you.
If you ever thought modern football was too soft, just wait until you hear about the Battle of Santiago, a World Cup match so violent it basically became the stuff of legend. It's 1962 Chile. The hosts are up against Italy in a group stage game. But from the very first whistle, it's clear this isn't going to be about the football. There's tension off the pitch already, bad blood between the teams, insults in the press, even local police warnings about crowd trouble. And then the game kicks off. Within minutes, players are kicking lumps out of each other. Punches are thrown, boots are flying, and every challenge seems to be harder than the last. At one point, Italian midfielder Giorgio Farini is sent off, but refuses to leave the pitch, so the police have to escort him off. That's just the start. The real chaos comes when Chile's Lionel Sanchez breaks Italian defender Mario David's nose with a punch. David retaliates by kung fu kicking Sanchez in the head. The referee, a poor Englishman named Ken Aston, is completely out of his depth. Cards aren't even being used yet, so he just tries to keep the peace. Police end up on the pitch multiple times, dragging players apart. There are barely any proper tackles, just constant scraps and fights. In the end, Chile win 2-0, but no one really remembers the football, just the brawls, the blood, and the sheer madness. The Battle of Santiago remains the very most violent match in World Cup history, a game where the referee literally lost control and the whole world watched a football match turn into a street fight. It's the kind of story that proves, at the World Cup, anything can happen.
Football kits aren't usually the centre of a World Cup scandal, but Cameroon managed to turn a fashion choice into a full-blown showdown with FIFA in 2002. This wasn't just about stripes or colours, this was about sleeves, or rather, the lack of them. For the 2002 World Cup in Japan and South Korea, Puma unveiled something completely different, a bright green, skin-tight top with no sleeves at all. It looked more like a basketball vest than a football shirt, and when Cameroon stepped onto the pitch, they definitely made a statement. But FIFA were having none of it. They insisted that shirts had to have sleeves, according to the official rulebook. The Cameroonian FA argued, Puma argued, but FIFA held firm. After the tournament, Cameroon were even fined and threatened with being docked World Cup qualifying points if they wore the design again. But it didn't end there. In 2004, for the African Cup of Nations, Puma tried to push things further with a one-piece kit. Yes, a full-bodied football suit, no separate shorts. FIFA banned that too. By this point, the whole thing had become a global talking point, with fans split between loving the creativity and thinking it was all a bit much. The sleeveless shirt scandal didn't win Cameroon any trophies, but it did win them a place in football history. The only team to ever have their kit banged at a World Cup. It's a reminder that, at the World Cup, even what you wear can cause chaos, headlines, and a fair bit of laughter. Who knew that sleeves, or a lack of them, could stir up so much trouble?
Some teams implode quietly at a World Cup, but France's collapse in 2010 was more like a soap opera playing out live on the world stage. This was a meltdown, so public, so dramatic, it made the football almost irrelevant. It started with hope. France, finalists just 4 years earlier, still had plenty of big names and expectations. But the cracks started to show straight away. After a limp opening draw and a defeat to Mexico, all eyes turned to star striker Nicolas Anelka, who was rumoured to have launched a foul-mouthed tirade at manager Raymond Domenech during half-time. Anelka was promptly sent home, but that just lit the fuse. The next day, the players refused to train, literally just sat on the bus and argued with staff. Captain Patrice Evra squared up to a member of the coaching team, and the press were loving it. The French football president was in tears on live TV, trying to explain what was happening. The entire country watched in disbelief. The fallout was total. France lost their final group game, finished bottom, and went home in disgrace. Back in Paris, politicians were debating what to do with the national team. Public apologies were demanded. It even sparked debates about national pride and what it meant to wear the shirt. For most countries, a World Cup exit is just about football. For France, in 2010, it was a national crisis. The image of the squad refusing to train, barricaded on their bus, remains one of the World Cup's most surreal and unforgettable moments, proof that sometimes the biggest battles are fought off the pitch.
England's World Cup history is full of heartbreak, but Beckham's red card against Argentina in 1998 is up there with the most dramatic and controversial of them all. It's the round of 16 in Saint-Étienne. England against old rivals, knockout football at its absolute best. The match is wild from the start, 2 penalties in the first 10 minutes. Michael Owen scores that incredible solo goal, and by half-time, it's 2-2. The tension is unreal. Then, early in the second half, comes the moment that changes everything. David Beckham, just 23, and England's golden boy, is fouled from behind by Diego Simeone. Beckham's lying on the turf, frustrated, when he flicks at his leg, barely more than a tap, catching Simeone on the calf. Simeone goes down as if he's been shot. The referee rushes over, and suddenly the red card is out. Beckham's off. England down to 10 men. What follows is a heroic defensive effort. Scholes, Ince and the rest throwing themselves in front of everything. Sol Campbell has a goal ruled out, and then it goes to penalties. You know how that ends. Heartbreak. England lose yet again in a shootout. But the story isn't over. Back home, Beckham is public enemy #1. The tabloids absolutely savage him, burning effigies, abuse in the streets, blamed for the nation's exit. It's brutal. Looking back, it was a moment of youthful frustration, a bit of football's dark arts from Simeone, and a refereeing decision that was, at best, harsh. But it defined Beckham's career for years, until he redeemed himself, of course, with that free kick against Greece. A flick of the boot, a red card, and a moment that changed English football folklore forever.
When it comes to World Cup meltdowns, nothing quite matches the scale or the fallout of Roy Keane walking out on Ireland at the 2002 World Cup, or, depending on who you ask, being sent home in spectacular fashion. Ireland had finally made it back to the big stage, and expectations were quietly high. Roy Keane, the team's captain and Manchester United's midfield enforcer, was meant to be their driving force. But almost as soon as the squad landed at their training camp in Saipan, things started going sideways. Keane was furious with the training facilities. He thought the pitch was a joke, the gear was subpar, and the whole operation felt amateurish. He clashed loudly with manager Mick McCarthy, who told him to either get on with it or go home. In a now legendary team meeting, the row exploded. Keane called McCarthy every name under the sun, accused him of being a liar and a bad manager, and, with the cameras rolling and the press circling, was sent packing before a ball was even kicked. Back in Ireland, it was civil war. Half the country backed Keane, demanding higher standards in professionalism. The other half thought he'd abandon his team when they needed him most. Phone-ins, headlines, pub debates. Saipan was everywhere. Ireland still managed to get out of the group, but without Keane, their World Cup adventure fizzled out in the last 16. It's a story of pride, passion, and just a bit of madness. A moment when the pressure cooker of the World Cup was just too much. And it's still debated 2 decades on.
When you talk about footballing icons, Diego Maradona is never far from the conversation. By 1994, he'd already conquered the world. Hand of God, goal of the century, and a legacy as both a genius and a troublemaker. But what happened in the USA was a World Cup exit like no other. Maradona had dragged himself back into the Argentina squad after years of battles with injury, addiction, and controversy. He turned up in incredible shape, with the old swagger back. In the opening matches, he was electric, scoring a brilliant goal and setting the tone for another deep run. Then came the bombshell. After Argentina's win against Nigeria, Maradona was selected for a routine drug test. The world saw him hand in hand with a nurse beaming into the camera as he left the pitch, an image that would become instantly infamous. Days later, the news broke. Maradona had tested positive for ephedrine, a banned stimulant. It was a massive shock. FIFA acted quickly, suspending Maradona from the tournament and effectively ending his international career on the spot. Argentina were left reeling. They crashed out in the next round, their star man in disgrace and their World Cup dreams in pieces. Maradona, never one to take things lying down, claimed he was a victim of a setup, blaming FIFA, conspiracies, and bad luck. But the damage was done. For many fans, the image of Maradona's wild-eyed celebration after his goal, followed by his swift and humiliating exit, sums up the roller coaster of his footballing life. It was pure World Cup drama, brilliance, controversy, and heartbreak, all rolled into one unforgettable story.
If you ever need proof that tensions at the World Cup can bring out the worst and even the best players, just look at Frank Rijkaard and Rudi Völlers' infamous spitting rout of 1990. It's the round of 16, West Germany versus the Netherlands, two old rivals meeting in Milan, both sides packed with talent and attitude. Völler up front for Germany, Rijkaard bossing the Dutch midfield. The match is fiery from the start with hard tackles, little fouls and the sense that neither team is going to back down. Then, in the first half, things get ugly. Rijkaard and Völler are tussling for the ball when Rijkaard loses his temper and spits in Völler's hair, a disgusting move, but one that incredibly goes unseen by the officials. Play carries on, but minutes later, after another clash between the two, Rijkaard does it again, this time right in Völler's face. Both men are sent off as they walk down the tunnel. Rijkaard spits once more for good measure, and Völler was left furious and fuming. The aftermath is chaos. Cameras replaying the spitting in slow motion, pundits arguing about who was to blame, and football fans everywhere cringing at one of the sport's most unsavoury moments. The rivalry between the two countries only got fiercer. For years, Rijkaard's moment of madness followed him even as he became a world-class manager. It's one of those welcome moments you wish hadn't happened, but also one you just can't forget. At the World Cup, tempers can flare, and sometimes players lose their head in ways no one could have predicted. Some moments in football are so painful, you can still feel them decades later. And for Italy, nothing stings quite like Roberto Baggio's penalty miss in the 1994 World Cup final. Baggio was the star of the tournament in the USA, dragging a pretty average Italy side to the final almost single-handedly. He scored brilliant goals, ran rings around defenders, and looked every inch a superstar, ponytail and all. By the time the final against Brazil came around, he was carrying a niggling injury. There was still this feeling that if anyone could deliver for Italy, it was Baggio. The final itself was a tense, scrappy affair, no goals after 120 minutes, so it all came down to penalties. Brazil edged ahead and up stepped Baggio for Italy's final spot kick. Everyone knew what was at stake. The camera zooms in on his face, nerves, sweat, hope, and the weight of a nation. He runs up and blazes it high over the bar. Game over. Brazil celebrate, Italy collapse. Baggio stands alone at the penalty spot, head bowed, barely able to move. That image became one of the most replayed in World Cup history, a symbol of pure heartbreak. The miss haunted Baggio for years. He kept playing, scored more goals, but whenever the World Cup came around, it was about moment, one poor kick on the biggest stage that everyone remembered. It's the cruelty of football. It can be brilliant for weeks, but a single second can change everything. For Baggio and for Italy, it's the penalty that no one will ever forget. If you want a World Cup moment that still divides England fans, look no further than the night Cristiano Ronaldo winked after Wayne Rooney's red card in 2006. It's the quarter-final in Germany, England versus Portugal, a classic tense affair with plenty of talent on both sides. Wayne Rooney, England's star striker, is having a physical battle with the Portuguese defence, and with his own Manchester United teammate Ronaldo buzzing around stirring the pot. Midway through the second half, the ball gets tangled in the box and Rooney, under pressure, steps on Ricardo Carvalho. The referee blows and immediately Ronaldo's in his ear, waving imaginary cards demanding punishment. The two play together in Manchester, but at that moment there's no love lost. Ronaldo's pushing hard for a red. Then comes the turning point. Rooney is sent off, England down to 10 men, and as the camera cuts away, it catches Ronaldo sneaking a sly wink to the Portuguese bench. That's all it took. The wink that became instant headline news. England fans lost it, pundits called it betrayal, and the tabloids went into meltdown. For a while, Ronaldo was public enemy number one in England. He got food everywhere he went in the Premier League, and the summer was full of rumours about Rooney and Ronaldo's friendship being over. But here's the twist. Months later, they patched things up and went on to win trophies together at United. But for most England fans, that wink summed up everything about World Cup heartbreak and a little bit of football's dark arts. One small gesture, a massive fallout, and a rivalry that's never really faded.
If there's ever been a match that sums up the darker, more cynical side of World Cup football, it's West Germany versus Austria in 1982, a game so infamous it's simply known as the disgrace of Gijón. Here's the story. It's the last group game of the first round. Both teams know the maths. If West Germany win by 1 or 2 goals, both they and Austria go through at the expense of Algeria, who'd pulled off a shock of the tournament by beating West Germany earlier on. West Germany score early, after just 10 minutes, and suddenly the action just stops. For the next 80 minutes, it's like a training ground drill. Both teams just pass the ball around with almost no effort to attack. Austria barely crossed the halfway line, West Germany don't bother pushing for a second. Fans in the stadium are whistling, waving money, and even chanting "out, out" in protest. The commentators are fuming. One German TV pundit even refuses to comment after half-time out of sheer embarrassment. Everyone watching knows exactly what's going on. The two sides have silently agreed to a result that sends them both through, eliminating Algeria, who that pulled off a shock of the tournament by beating West Germany earlier on. The outcry is huge. It's a scandal that stains both teams' reputations and leaves a bitter taste for years. FIFA are so embarrassed, they immediately changed the rules. From then on, the final games in each group must be played simultaneously to stop teams from knowing exactly what result they need. It's the ultimate example of football's dark side, where winning means more than playing fair, and the whole world gets to watch as the game turns into a farce.